Hey, welcome back. This is Roto RX on Nickel Press TV, your fantasy prescription. We're talking fantasy baseball. We are at the All-Star break, so we hit the middle of the season. I'm Andy Singleton, People's Pen on Twitter. That over there is Tehol Beddict, Lord Beddict on Twitter. First and foremost, we both would like to apologize for not having an episode last week. Would you like to elaborate on that one?
First of all, I'd like to say last week is totally my fault. I apologize mostly to Andy here. I was in a hotel room with a nice gal I met on the street that I decided to take on a little weekend getaway to Bangkok, in and out, in and out, in and out. And I thought I could record the show. It didn't work out. I kind of lost all focus. I feel terrible. It was my fault. Andy is the brains behind this operation. It is totally my fault. He makes the show go. It's not his fault. It's my fault. It'll never happen again. He's the man. I'm a peasant this week.
No, stop it. No apologies needed. We actually did attempt to record a show, and it just was not happening. And then I even went the extra mile. I got Jim Finch, who I constantly thank and mention from Fantasy Assembly, to come in as a guest on the Chase to Replace. He was able to do it last minute. And then that just was same thing. It was just not meant to be last week.
Right.
So the doctor, though, we were going to tell you last week, was on vacation and was not kind enough to give us videos on his cruise. He gets off the cruise ship in the background, and does reports on Zack, Greinke, Jordan Zimmerman, and Jameson, Taillon. So we'll reuse those this week, just so you can hear a doctor's perspective on them. They might be a little late for you, but I think they're still kind of relevant. So those three players are still injured. So we'll use those so the doctor's efforts don't go to waste. And this week we are going to do, as I mentioned, it is the All-Star break, mid-season. Fantasy playoffs are coming up sooner than later. And we're going to go through basically position by position, our studs and duds, and then give you surprises at each position. And then we're going to give you a couple of our second half predictions. But before we get into that, as I mentioned, Fantasy Assembly, I want to thank them. I want to thank the Redditors. I want to thank the Razzball people. I want to thank today's Knuckleball, all the people we can thank. I also want to mention Revo Labels, who you're going to start seeing some of their advertisements on our site, hopefully in the next couple episodes. So if you're a fantasy commissioner, make sure you check out Revo Labels. They have phenomenal draft kits. And other than that, what else is going on in your life?
Not a whole lot, man. I mean, I just got to, again, say I'm so sorry. I mean, the doctor's on a cruise. He's doing the videos. I can't do it. I'm getting interrupted by hotel staff wondering why there's blow all over the bathroom. Like, I don't know. Like, it just wasn't meant to be. Why there's naked women parading around the hotel from my room. It was just not meant to be. I didn't sleep for 48 hours. I still tried to do it. Didn't happen. But the doctor's on a cruise. He's doing it. He's having a romantic getaway. And I can't even take an hour out of my time because of drugs and women and stuff like that. I'm just ashamed. I'm embarrassed. I'm appalled. I'm disgusted with myself. I'm going back to rehab, and I'm coming back stronger than ever.
Well, you've not publicly shamed yourself. So if people don't forgive you, I don't know what else you can do at this point. Did you happen to see the home run derby? We are, just so you know, this will air on Thursdays. So those of you watching, it is now Thursday. But we are recording, what is it now, Tuesday. So I'm just curious what your take was, because there were a few points where it looked like Giancarlo Stanton was going to hurt somebody in the upper decks of left field with these shots he was hitting.
It was incredible, really. I honestly, I didn't watch it. I watched it afterward. I came home. I went to the gym, flushed the drugs out the system, and then I came home. And I turned it on kind of after Stanton had gone. I just saw the end of Frazier trying to match that up. Didn't happen, but 60, whatever, 61, 62 homer, whatever he hit, that is absolutely insane. He said he's hitting 80%, not even giving his full power. I told everybody all during the year, don't trade this guy, don't drop this guy. We know what this guy is. He's a savage. He's a monster. He's got more power than anybody in baseball right now. If you trade this guy, sell low, you're gonna regret it the rest of your life. And that's what was on display last night. An absolute heroic feat. The Paul Bunyan, the miraculous Bambino. He's a legend. you dropped him, you feel like a bum, as you should.
The Paul Bryant. I thought that was the Paul Bunyan. I thought that was Chris Bryant, and I wanted to ask you: were you a little disturbed that Chris Bryant wasn't partaking in the home run derby?
No, I never like when my players partake in the home run derby. I just like, I've always that little stat, like where at least for a while, where a lot of these, I never really bought into it, but it still kind of like scared me a little bit. Like when these guys who go off in the home run derby all of a sudden have no power, like just because of some hitting display, they all of a sudden, are tapped out for the second half of the year. I thought that was just absolutely ridiculous. But at the same time, I don't mind my guy taking a little breather. It's all good. I want a big second half. I don't mind at all. Let Stan take it. He's got more power anyway. He's the Don. Accept your role and move on. Maybe next year.
All right. Well, good words. Because let's move on to some players that we have tapped as our first half studs, duds, and surprises. I also want to mention real quick, D. Gordon should be eligible to return, since we're talking about Stanton. His teammate D. Gordon should be eligible to return Thursday, July 28th, which is roughly 2 weeks from today. So there you go. There's the D. Gordon update. Starting with catcher. I'm going to go through your list, and then, most of my guys were the same. But you had Wilson Ramos as your stud, obvious. Russell Wilson as your dud. And, again, Wilson Ramos as your surprise. My personal surprise is Sandy Leon, only because the guy does not seem to be able to get out. I know it's a short sample. Only something like just approaching 100 at-bats or something like that now. But he's batting 455 still. It's insane. Not much power there, but tell me a little bit more about Wilson Ramos. And you think this is something he can maintain? Because it seems like there's a lot of nationals and just having phenomenal years. We're going to get into Daniel Murphy in a little bit. Ian Desmond, former national. Had they kept him, who knows? Who knows? You also have Danny Espinosa on this list. So there's a ton of nationals that are having monster career seasons. So what surprises you the most about Ramos? And is this sustainable?
First of all, I want to shout out Ramos for saving my season in a way. I drafted Kyle Schwarber very high in my biggest money league draft this year, or probably around where his ADP was, but still pretty high. I mean, he was going pretty high, you know what I'm saying? I mean, and then I was able to get Ramos off waivers. He's the number one catcher, so it had the Schwarber thing hasn't affected me thus far. He had the LASIK surgery. Obviously, it really helped. I always wish I had the LASIK. I always felt like if I had LASIK earlier, I could have been a professional video game player. I feel like it really would have helped my hand-eye coordination. Wilson Ramos has always had the power. The average is not going to stay at 340 or whatever it is, but I mean, shit. I mean, he's locked in, man. I don't know. The power is real. I mean, he seems pretty legit. I mean, if he ends the season hitting 300 with, 25, 30, I mean, I'll take it every day of the week. I mean, I don't know what you can sell him for, but I'm riding the wave, man. It's incredible. It's kind of under talked about what he's really doing right now. It's insane.
It really is insane, the numbers he has across the board. And to think just not too long ago, in the near distant past, was talks of Ramos available on waivers, Wellington Castillo available on waivers, and they were right kind of obviously they've gone on two totally different paths, but this wasn't too long ago. You could have picked this guy up, and now, like you said, he's saving a lot of seasons. Another guy kind of really putting it all together. At first base, you have your stud is Mark Trumbo. Your dud is Jose Abreu. And your surprise and my surprise, big surprise, is Wil Myers at first base. So which of those three guys would you like to expand on? I'm hoping it's Myers because I was kind of shocked when I saw that he moved to first base from the outfield just to begin with. The switch to Tampa Bay, he kind of fell off the radar. He was a highly touted prospect. A lot was expected of him. I mean, these are the kind of numbers that he's putting up that were expected of him. Fell way short of that. Moved to, South Florida and or Western Florida. And he's finally putting it together. So what are you amazed about with Wil Myers?
I feel just terrible about Wil Myers. So this year I waited on first base as usual, waited late, had bums like Teixeira and some of these other guys. Picked up Myers off waivers early on, or maybe I drafted him, I forget, really late. and was riding him and enjoying the ride or whatever. They had like a little slump, like a 1 week or 2 week slump or whatever. And I I like to just move forward when I feel like a guy's going to fall off. Like most of these hitters in San Diego, and nobody's really been able to hit there consistently. And I really didn't think he was going to continue anything like this at all. He's the #1 first baseman on ESPN's Player Rater. It's absolutely insane. I dropped this guy for nothing. Luckily, I was able to pick up Santana on the Indians, who's been pretty hot over the last month or whatever. But Myers with the stolen bases, the power, it's absolutely incredible. I'm lucky to still be in first place, so I'd be kicking myself all day. I still am. I could use the guy all day. I mean, it's incredible what this guy's doing in the trade, which looked bad for a minute for San Diego for giving up whatever all the guys they gave up for him. Now is looking like a great move. Now they can either rebuild around him or they can trade him for a bunch more pieces if they're going to do a total rebuild and should be able to get quite a haul. I mean, it looks incredible. It really does.
It really, really does. And, as you'll see when we go through this list, I had in preparation for the show, I apologize. I was in transition. I've had a very busy week. I had everybody's ADP and what the values and bargains were and everything like that. I lost that list in transition, so I apologize. But you'll notice the guys on this list, you could have had a complete all-star roster of guys that were either going undrafted or like 10th, 12th, 14th round and later. And it's insane. Not just that they're producing, but they're, as you mentioned, like #1 or #2 at their position. So let's keep going. Second base. You have Robinson Cano as your stud. I can't argue that, but I can also say you can say Altuve and Daniel Murphy as well belong in that conversation. Your dud is Brandon Phillips, which I'm a little surprised by. And your surprise is Danny Espinosa. So I understand why the Robinson Cano, because you're Seattle, as I mentioned, the other two potential studs that you could list here. But give me your reasons with Brandon Phillips. Is he going to remain in Cincinnati? Does he get moved at the deadline? There's been a lot of talk since the offseason about Phillips not remaining in Cincinnati, yet he's still there, and now he's underperforming. So what's your take?
The second base is a pretty weak position, so it's kind of hard for me to find a dud on the Player Rater. He was way down there, like 24 or whatever. I know the stats sometimes it's kind of a little confusing. But yeah, he's just underperformed. I mean, the guy last year, they tried to trade him. He uses this no trade clause like a bum, doesn't want to go play for a contender, wants to sit there in the steaming filth of Cincinnati, whatever goes on over there. I don't know. I don't want to know. I don't want to go there. I don't know why he wants to stay there. I don't know why he doesn't want to go take a little vacay, go play for a contender, go win a playoff game, go win a title. He doesn't want that. The guy's obviously a loser. I have no patience for that. Robinson Cano is a legend. Altuve is my favorite second baseman in the world, the best player in the world. I didn't even feel like it was necessary for me to mention him as a stud. He's my keeper. He's my guy. Cano, people said he fell off. People thought he was going to be done. I said he was going to bounce back and go major this year. People said Rudy, my own boy, Rudy told me I reached on him at the turn of the third round or whatever and getting Cano at second base. Now it looks like a steal there. So, shout out to Rudy, but, I had to do him dirty like that. And then, but Altuve, man, shout out to him. What he's doing is incredible. Give him the MVP right now.
So I don't know the population in Cincinnati off the top of my head, but apologies to the tens of thousands that you just offended and pissed off. Sorry, Cincinnati, WKRP. You are a phenomenal sports town. You're a phenomenal city. Forget what he just said about the Reds.
I'm bitter because King Griffey Jr., our greatest player of Seattle sports history, left us to go home to Cincinnati and never was seen from again, really.
Okay, so you're jaded. Well, let's take a break from this and let's bring in a nice, respectable man that we like to refer to as the fantasy doctor, Dr. Salim Parekh, from vacation, talking about Zack Greinke.
This is Dr. Salim Parekh, the fantasy doctor, updating you on injuries that are happening this week. Zack Greinke finds himself on the disabled list with an oblique strain. Now, we've talked about these a lot, and they come in different grades. Grade 1s and 2s take 2 to 4 weeks to heal. Grades 3s can take 6 to 8 weeks to heal. I'm looking for him to be out for about 2 to 4 weeks, and the reason I give this about a 2 to 4 week timeline is that as a pitcher, he's going to have a lot of strain going through this left oblique area, and it really needs time to calm down to heal, because if it doesn't, he will not get the velocity he needs off the mound. So 2 to 4 weeks is my timeline. End of July is when we'll see him back, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Well, that sounds right about in line with what we're hearing, that he should be back sometime shortly after the All-Star break, which is currently going on. So seems to be on schedule with his recovery, and that's something the doctor is overly concerned about. While we were loading up that video, I did do some research. Cincinnati is populated by 300,000 people. Honestly, if we had 300,000 people watch this episode, I wouldn't be upset if they were a little offended by your comments. But nonetheless, if any of you 300,000 were watching, apologies. Shortstop, your stud, the X-Man, Xander Bogaerts, your dud, Alexi Ramirez, and your big surprise, as we were talking about before, Ian Desmond. So give me some elaborate information on Ian Desmond, because this guy is not just playing short, he's playing the outfield as well. He's had a resurgence, which a lot of people expected to have this year, but it's really been pretty overwhelming.
It truly has. I've never really was expecting anything quite like that. I mean, it's just like the guy has just switched positions seamlessly and has become like this great outfielder. Usually what I'm expecting is some bum like Hanley Ramirez switching positions, looking like an absolute clown show out in the outfield. But here we have Desmond, who looks like a goddamn Gold Glover out there at every position they put him out in the outfield, like this was meant to be. I've been clowning this guy for years, how he turned down over $100 million before last season or whatever, looking like an absolute fool. Now, like, it looks like he probably get that anyway, and he's found a new position. I mean, this guy is killing it. He's stealing bags. He's doing what he used to do. The errors, it said, like he's even said it, the errors at short were getting in his head, obviously, or whatever. But he's in Texas, nice ballpark to hit, nice lineup. He's absolutely killing it. This is one of the biggest shocks of the season, that he has just become like this, Gold Glove level type outfielder, which is insane to me, because usually when they stick guys out there, change position, it's just because to get their bat in the lineup, they're not expecting them to actually excel at the position. It's truly incredible. I'd like to salute him. I'd like to shout him out. I'd like to get him on the show, and I'd like to congratulate him on a great season.
Yeah, and it's really spelled doom for Joey Gallo, not getting up, really a place to play now, in large part because of what Desmond's been able to, do in the outfield and hold it down. So I agree. It's been a complete surprise. But one guy, and I want to know your thoughts on this, we mentioned him on the show maybe a month or so ago as, I said he's somebody I could see sustaining this. Eduardo Nunez, he's overperformed even my expectations. I just thought the average could play based on what I've seen in the past from him in his Yankees. He's top 5 at the shortstop position at this point, and really came out of nowhere for a lot of people to be doing that. So are you taken back by the Nunez revolution?
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, shortstop's a weak-ass position. That's why it's pretty shocking. Some of these guys, Espinosa, like who we talked about. I mean, people were calling this for this guy's head like 2 weeks ago, like, where's Trey Turner? Where's Trey Turner? Where's Trey Turner? All of a sudden this guy turns into A-Rod in his prime and is just mashing. I'm just like, what's going on here? I'm confused. Obviously that won't play out. But yeah, Nunez has been great. I mentioned Alexi Ramirez. I couldn't just find a dud just because I wasn't expecting much from anybody really at the position. I used to love Alexi Ramirez. He's absolute trash these days. I got nothing to say about him. But yeah, Nunez is looking real good. Espinosa, is that going to continue? Probably not. But yeah. I mean, you had Nunez, kudos to you. I mean, it's a shallow position, and he's got the job there.
Yeah, and it speaks to what you're saying with the position, because my dub is actually Carlos Correa, who I love, but the reason I have him as a dud is because, this guy was arguably the number 1 pick overall, and he's just really fell short of what people were expecting in his, second season, his first full season. So he would have been my dud just based on how much is returning on where you would have had to have taken him. But let's move on to third base. A guy that, because of the Correas of the world, kind of started to fall off the back burner a little. Maybe it's because he wasn't, the flavor of the week or the month or whatever have you. But Kris Bryant has been everything we've expected Kris Bryant to be in the first half of this season. And I say that because, like I mentioned, in the beginning of the year, people knew who he was and people certainly wanted him, but he wasn't being talked about as, possibly the number 1 overall pick. There were a lot of other people that were, being touted over him, and Nolan Arenado, for instance, at third base. But he's just lived up to everything the legend of Chris Bryant. There were a lot of folk tales about what this guy has done in his life, from the Little League, Pee Wee ranks, all the way through college. So I'm happy to see that he is thriving. Anthony Rendon has been my, complete dud at the position. And the overwhelming surprise and pleasant surprise has been Jake Lamb for me. So go. I would love to know what you say about Jake Lamb, because I've been getting a lot of people asking me. I actually had somebody ask me yesterday, is he like an Nolan Arenado? And I had to stop for a minute, because you know what? It's really not that far off. They're both like 25 years old. They both are hitting for average, hitting for power. It's really not that far off to say Lamb is in that same category with Arenado at this point. So I'm happy for Lamb. But go ahead. I know you have something to add to that.
Yeah, it's been incredible. He was one of the few mistakes I probably made before the season on my kind of early season predictions, on like kind of studs and duds predictions. Like, I really was thinking maybe he was a little overhyped, but I look like a fool on that one. I mean, this guy has been great. Like, the stats are incredible. Like, again, another under talked about player. Seems like everybody out in Arizona is pretty under talked about, or whatever, maybe because their team blows and they've underperformed, and all the signings they made have amounted to nothing. But he's been great. I mean, he's been incredible, really. Like, I mean, I don't have really much to say other than I'm kind of surprised how great he's been. Chris Bryant, I had a tough keeper job. I had a keeper league where I was stacked. I had an incredible draft last year. It started last year. I had to keep 2 guys. I had kept Altuve and Bryant. I had to cut like Mookie Betts and a bunch of other hogs. And I'm happy with my decision so far. I mean, Mookie Betts is going to be pretty incredible, but Altuve and Bryant, it's hard to beat that right there. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Well, let's bring the doctor back in and load up another video. We got him talking about Jordan Zimmerman. So can you throw that one on? And we'll see what he has to say about the Tigers' new acquisition for this year.
Sure.
Tigers' Jordan Zimmerman has a right neck strain. Now, we've talked about neck strains again as well, and it seems to be the common theme over the last few weeks, a lot of strains, a lot of aches. The neck strain can happen anywhere along the muscles or the tendons or ligaments that are in and around the spinal canal. They can mean sometimes a bigger issue, like a disc herniation causing abnormal strain going through the neck muscles, or it could be something very, very benign, as we call it, something that's just more muscular. So my timeline is 2 to 4 weeks. He's going to be working with the trainers a lot on mechanics to try to get a lot of extra stress off of that neck, but 2 to 4 weeks is my timeline, and look for him to be back almost full duty when he comes back. I don't see or envision any real loss in his power or in his strength once he comes back, if this is all muscular. If, however, there's a bigger issue looming, like a disc herniating on a nerve, then look for him to struggle to make his way back, and then he falls into the same protocol which we've seen time and time again this season, which is some injections, maybe some more therapy, some more time lost, and perhaps even surgery. But I don't envision that right now. 2 to 4 weeks is my timeline.
All right, so 2 to 4 weeks with Zimmerman. Again, kind of right in line with what was being talked about. That was the doctor's prediction last week, and he's still on that schedule. So, doctor's 2 for 2 with his takes on these injuries. Let's start rifling through these outfielders and pitchers so we can get to our second half predictions. But for the outfield, your start is Mookie Betts. Your dud is Andrew McCutcheon. And your surprise has been Melvin B.J. Upton and Rajai Davis. I'd like to add Jackie Bradley to that as a big surprise, but McCutcheon obviously kind of been a dud, as you said. Mookie Betts is a dud. Rajai Davis, I'm surprised to see is your surprise. Why? And as opposed to others that have been living up, like I mentioned, Jackie Bradley. Why would you have Rajai Davis on your list of surprises? Not that you're wrong for it, just asking what has surprised you about Davis.
I have Rajai on there because of what he's done. He's always been one of my favorite underrated players. He's always been one of the best base stealers in the league. The average has always been pretty good. It's just the on-base percentage. He doesn't take a lot of walks. But I feel like whenever he's been in there, I always called for him to be a regular, everyday player. He's always been kind of pigeonholed as kind of a platoon guy, but now he's playing every day. He's killing it. On the player, I put him there because on the ESPN player rater thing or whatever, he's like a top 10 outfielder, I think, or top 20 anyway. And he's just killing it. I mean, he's hit like 8 or 9 jacks. He's got 20-something steals. Killing it, man. I just like I'm just happy for the guy, man. I've always wanted him on my team, and I've liked him everywhere he's gone. I've always picked him up here and there for steals, and he's getting the job done. And I just kind of thought he was a big surprise there. Yeah, that's why McCutcheon it's been absolute gutter trash, man. I don't know what to say about the guy. He's not looking good at all. I don't know what to say about McCutcheon. That's pretty pathetic right there. I've never seen a fall off like this.
And yeah, I agree with you. But is McCutcheon somebody you see moving, or do you think the Pirates find a way to lock him up and keep him around long term? Because there have been mentions that he might be somebody that might not be long for Pittsburgh as he starts to age.
Yeah, it's a really tough call. I mean, if I'm Pittsburgh, I'm keeping him and counting on the bounce back. I mean, a guy like this talented he's not like he had some major injury or something. That doesn't really make sense. I mean, one has to assume he's going to bounce back. I'm willing to bet he does. I'd probably keep him around. I know they got a prospect or two that's kind of ready to go maybe, or that they really like, and the other 2 outfielders they have are great also. So, I mean, if they wanted to get cute and make a big trade, they could do that. I mean, they have some other guys that can kind of make up for that if they feel like there's an area of their team they can improve by trading and getting rid of some of that salary. But
right. And those outfielders you mentioned, well, Josh Bell was an outfielder. They're trying to move him to first base to get him up to Pittsburgh, which we talked about him a couple of weeks ago. But the other one is Austin Meadows, who's coming on strong for the Pirates from first-round pick. Moving on to the starting pitching. Before we do that, let's go to the final doctor video, because it is a Pirate, a young Pirate, Jameson Taillon, and it is another starting pitcher. And then we'll give you some studs, duds, surprises. So cue up the Jameson Taillon.
Shocker.
Medical report.
Already.
Pirates Jameson Taillon has a triceps issue. Now, the reason we say issue is because it hasn't been clearly defined, but most likely what this is going to be is just some tendonitis and inflammation where the tendon inserts into the back of the elbow, right kind of in the back where the point of the elbow is. Now, that is an area that can be a lot of a critical area, because when you throw and you whip that elbow straight, it can the triceps really fires and can cause a lot of pain if you've got inflammation and tendonitis. Typically, you're looking at a 2 to 4 week timeline with, again, anti-inflammatories, ultrasound, physical therapy, the performance trainers working with him to try to get some pressure off that tendon and work on the mechanics. But 2 to 4 weeks is my timeline, and I don't envision any issues with his velocity when he gets back onto the mound.
All right, so for starting pitching, your stud is Johnny Cueto. Your dud is Felix Hernandez, which I am blown away to see that guy listed. Because I know you have a fat head of Felix over your bed. But your surprise has been Rich Hill. So elaborate, please. I'm dying to know why Felix Hernandez is your dud. It's really been injury. I mean, are you going to knock him for that?
I am going to knock him for that. I mean, even before he got injured, he was like not quite the same. He was the ERA. He was kind of lucky that the ERA was so low. He was giving up a ton of hits. He was getting out a lot of jams somehow. So, I mean, I guess that's kudos to him. But, I mean, he just doesn't look the same, man. And some people were concerned he wasn't going to be, quite himself this year after he kind of had a poor end of the season last year. I thought for one he would bounce back for sure and be a top 10, 15 starter this year, no question about it. Then he gets hurt. Then they said it wasn't going to be a long time at all. Now he's been out like half the damn season or whatever. So yeah, I mean it's a dud, man. I thought he was going to be big time this year. The Mariners are in contention for a wild card, and he hasn't been there for the whole time. So it's been. It's been unfortunate. I just mean a dud as far as fantasy perspective. If you drafted him high and gotten whatever you've gotten out of him, I mean, it's a dud, man. I mean, it's unfortunate. Cueto's been an absolute savage. What a pickup by San Francisco. What a signing. the complete games. It's insane. The guy is just an absolute stallion.
Yeah, pretty hard to argue against that. My biggest surprises have been Jake Arrieta, and I only say that because he slowed down a little from the hot start he got off to, but he's still a top 10 pitcher, and I just didn't I didn't think he would be a bad pitcher. I just didn't think he'd be on the same level of what everybody was predicting he would be. But the big surprise for me has been Stephen Wright in Boston, the knuckleballer, who's been pretty electric. And Zach Davies, who I feel like I have to get a mention in every episode. So look for positive things from Zach Davies the second half, and that is going to lead us into some predictions for the second half. I am going to ask you some of yours. I'm going to start with this one you made at catcher, that you think Matt Wieters is going to get scorching hot. Why is this? Why do you believe this?
I've always had too much faith, you could say, in Matt Wieters' play. He was my favorite college player. I had such huge expectations for him. His teammates called him God at Georgia Tech. I thought this guy was going to be a Hall of Fame catcher. I thought Mauer with power. This guy was back when Joe Mauer was actually a good baseball player. Some of our younger fans might not realize that Joe Mauer was once an absolute star baseball player. Now he's an absolute horse dung or whatever you call it. Horse apple. Yeah, that's what it's called. Horse apple. Yeah, dried horse shit. Yeah, he's just garbage. Matt Wieters is was an absolute star. I think he's starting to come around a little bit. The elbow's healing up. You know, he had the Tommy John as the hitter, which is kind of weird. I'm just a big believer. If you need a catcher second half, I think he's one to kind of target here, as I think he's primed for a nice season. It's more of just a gut feeling. It's more of just a love I have for Matt Wieters. And, you know, I sometimes let my emotions get in the way of some of my predictions. This may be one of them. I'm not going to lie to you right now, but I have a strong feeling. The elders have told me during our peyote sessions at the fire, and I think he's going to come through. So if you need a catcher, he's the guy I would target.
Well, I was looking up the population in Minnesota, which is around a little over 5 million, because now with that Mauer rant, you've pissed off an additional 5 million people, which is okay. This is a fantasy baseball show,
right,
and we're supposed to have fun. Your second prediction is Jose Berrios is going to come back up and just ball out in his second stint. I can't argue with you on that, but this is just anything you want to add to lay claim why?
With all these kind of stud young pitchers, coming up, people have totally, written him off when he's arguably the best one out of all these guys. I think he's going to be a star. He's been dominating at AAA lately. His last 4, 5, 6 starts, just absolutely destroying it. I think, the first time, it's insane how poorly that first time went. I mean, I would never have assumed that happened. We talked about it on the show. We thought he was going to, be very good right from the jump. I think he's kind of dialed it in and maybe took from that learning experience. I think he bounces back, man. I think he's better than Taillon probably. I mean, those guys have a better. They're in the National League there and probably have easier matchups, whatever. But I think Berrios is probably the best one of all these guys, and he should be. I mean, there's no reason to keep this guy down any longer, right? I mean, what are they doing? Like they got to bring him up after the break, and I picked him up now. And I'm hoping he's ready to go. I mean, there's no need for him to be in AAA anymore at this point. It's time to go.
Yeah, I'm hoping for big things for Berrios as well. As you mentioned, we talked about him extensively on this show. So we are fans. This show, Roto RX, supports you, Jose Berrios. But one of my second half predictions is a guy that is completely dominating AAA right now. He kind of, because of his suspension, was less talked about. And I'm talking of Alex Reyes. On the Cardinals, he's got 61 strikeouts in 41 AAA innings since his suspension ended this season. I feel he is going to be in St. Louis pretty soon, like within the next month soon, and will continue to post these ridiculous K numbers. That's just the kind of pitcher he is, and I think now will be a good time if he's available in a redraft league to add him. But you mentioned Melvin Upton is one of these surprises. His brother Justin and Carlos Gomez the Ageless Wonder, Carlos Gomez, you believe will have monster second halves to this season, to 2016. The Upton one, I can get on board with you. The Gomez one, we talked about in the preseason leading up to drafts that we both didn't feel like he was going to live up to, par for him this season. But you think he gets back on track?
I do. He showed a few flashes here and there. I'm not really sure what's happened to the guy. I mean, he's 30 years old or something like that. I mean, this guy had just finally become into his own a few years ago as an absolute fantasy star. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's still got the speed. I don't think he's been caught stealing that many times. I mean, it's just he missed some time. He came back and was hitting a little better, and it seems just kind of he's not really tailed out. I mean, he hasn't gotten hot yet, and I'm waiting for it to happen. And I don't know how it doesn't happen hitting in this lineup. I mean, Houston's been hot. I mean, we got Gaddis back in the lineup, Correa, Altuve, Springer. I mean, I just like to see. I just feel like even if he doesn't get back to like his old self, which probably isn't going to happen, even though it's possible because it's not. He's ancient, 30, 31. It's probably close to your prime as it gets. You know what I'm saying? I mean, what's the problem? I mean, I would like to think he really gets it going. Again, it's more of a gut call. He has been hitting better. Obviously, he couldn't hit any worse than he was to start the season. And I think maybe a little rest at the All-Star break, he kind of comes back, and that lineup continues to rake. And I feel like he's going to get, he's going to score. He's going to have a lot of RBI opportunities and, steal some bags. So I think he's a pretty good overall, target for the second half. If he's on, he might be on waivers, or you could probably get him for, pretty low if you're buying on him.
Agreed. It just feels like he's a lot older than he is, but you're right. He's still just 30, 31. Two of his teammates on my second half, on my list of second half predictions. I think Dallas Keuchel bears down and gets back to what you saw last year. I would like to see a strong second half from him. I'm sure everybody would like to see it, but I think it happens. And then a future teammate in the second half of the Astros, I think Bregmania takes over baseball. This kid is hit at every level from, A to AA to now AAA. Alex Bregman, get him. They're moving him to third. He's going to be up for the Astros. The Astros are going to win the most games in the second half of the 2016 season. Will Harris, pick him up if you can. He's going to have 20-plus saves in the second half. I like a strong second half for the Astros as well. We mentioned your dud was Felix Hernandez, but you have him as buying low on him because you think he's going to rebound in the second half to King Felix type numbers. And then this one, we all know, well, anybody that knows you are passionate about your love for Miguel Sano. I support you in that because I love him as well. You think he's hitting a minimum of how many home runs in the second half?
20.
Minimum. Okay. So where's it coming from? I'm not saying you're wrong, and I'm not saying it's unattainable, but minimum of 20.
Yeah, where it's coming from is this guy he's Stanton. He's Stanton. Like he was doing nothing, and all of a sudden he's hitting 2 homers a day. I mean, all it takes is I've seen Dominic Brown have a 13, 14 homer month. So I mean, Sano, that's all it takes right there. I mean, this guy's got as much power as anybody in the league. And it's going to happen. I mean, he hasn't really hit the stride yet. I mean, it's kind of been here and there. He was on the DL for a while. And, I think I predicted 40 bombs before the season, but now he's had the DL stint, so that's probably not attainable. Obviously, he'd have to absolutely go ham in the second half to reach that mark. But I think he's going to hit 20 the second half. I think he's just going to start just unleashing, and I would pick him up everywhere if you could buy low on that stallion right there. He's about to explode, and I can feel it in my loins. It's coming so big, it's coming so hard. He's going to absolutely go off. I want him. I tried to buy low on him all season. Nobody wants to give him up. But these bums in my league don't know what they're doing. They're just holding. Everyone's afraid I'm going to rip him off or something, which is probably true, but they don't want to give him up.
Well, you mentioned he's been injured. He does have 14. Our little preseason wager, or not preseason, but first couple weeks of the season, between who would have more strikeouts between Sano and Story. Sano's up to 85 with 14 homers. Story's up to 114 Ks with 21 homers. So they're both looking like they might get to 40, as you had said. The big surprise for me has been Story only has 5 stolen bases to this point. I said 20 easy, so he's halfway there with the 21 home runs. But he's got some ground to make up in the stolen base category. We're gonna have to re-wager that to go to average number of strikeouts per game as opposed to total number with the time that Sano's missed. And then my final prediction for the second half is doom and gloom in New York. I think the Yankees are going to have a fire sale, hopefully get rid of some of these aging veterans like Beltran and maybe even Teixeira. And, I mean, not that I don't want them in New York, but if you're not going to make the playoffs, try to get something while you can for them. And the Mets, the same thing. You're going to have – you got Harvey out for the year already. Syndergaard is now twice giving you a scare. The offense has been anemic at times, even though they've gotten hot a little recently. But, Reyes has been better than what you could have hoped for. I think he cools off. I just don't – I see big disappointment for Mets and Yankees fans this season, and that is what's going to happen in the second half. Anything else you want to add?
No, I don't need to add anything to that. Yeah, the Yankees, yeah, man. I they're staying right around 500. I'd be scared if I was a fan that, they're still technically in the wild card hunt there. I'd like to think that these veterans could band together, A-Rod, Tex, Beltran, and they could go on a little run. I mean, I guess it's technically possible. It just doesn't seem to quite be there. A-Rod is, after a really nice season last year, it's been pretty worthless. Not pretty worthless, absolutely worthless this season. And even getting some nice outputs from Castro and Didi, Gregorius, I mean, and the bullpen, I mean, they're still just trash. I mean, they really needed both Pineda and blank. What's the other young pitcher's name? Who is
Eovaldi?
No, well, yeah, he's been trash too.
Oh, Severino.
Yeah, Severino. Yeah, I mean, they really. For me, before the season, I said Pineda and Severino were going to have very nice seasons for them, and that just hasn't happened, obviously. And
yes.
Mets have been bums, and yeah, the Mets is just it's unfortunate what's happening there.
Very unfortunate. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this week. I do want to end with talking about something that we would like to present to our audience as a special opportunity to get into something. United Games is going to be launching an app in September. I believe it's September, the fall of 2016. I see you masquerading with the Masquerade app. I know you are a app gamer, War of Worlds or Warcraft, whatever it is. Candy Crush, this Pokemon Go has just gone viral. These are things that you partake in, correct? And I'm sure members of our audience.
Yeah, man. I've been hunting Pokemon all day yesterday. I was all straight and walking in my neighborhood looking for Pikachu and the other fat orange one. I don't know. I couldn't find them, but I found Pikachu in one of my palm trees. I just followed the app, and the game is so cool. And I love Pokemon, and I love Pikachu. He's so cute, and I just love the game. I mean, Pokemon Go. I mean, that's what I'm kind of all about right now. That's kind of my main thing. I've kind of replaced fantasy baseball with Pokemon Go. That's all I do. That's all I care about. Don't ask me about sports. Ask me about Pikachu. Ask me about Pokemon.
Well, what if I could give you that kind of level of app and combine it with your knowledge of sports, where you can play a game while you're watching a live sporting event?
Oh my God.
Exactly. Well, that is what United Games is creating. And after we end this right now, I'm going to tag along a short little 4-minute video that I invite you all to watch. And if that piques your interest and you have any more questions after that point, then please leave us your email in the comment section and we'll send you some more, because this is a unique opportunity to get in before you can't get in anymore as an affiliate for this app that's coming out. So think about it. If you could have been an affiliate for Candy Crush before Candy Crush launched, or Pokemon Go before Pokemon Go launched, and you could have been somebody making money off of all these downloads and how it's gone viral, wouldn't you want to get in? This is that opportunity for you. So check out the video. If you want to know more, like I said, leave your email in the comment section or find out how to contact us directly. And that's it. We hope you enjoyed this week. We will be back next week, ready to go for the second half of the season. Hope you guys are ready. Get ready to make that playoff push. And we'll see you later.
We all understand that mobile apps are changing our lives, but do we understand how substantial the app world really is? In the next 2 years, billions of apps are expected to be downloaded, generating hundreds of billions in revenue, and we're just seeing the beginning. And right now, games are the star of the show. The top revenue-generating apps in the world are games like Angry Birds, Candy Crush, Clash of Clans, and many others. These games see anywhere between 500,000 and 1.5 million a day in revenue. It's unbelievable, right? And more than 100,000 people a day are downloading these apps, just like them. So let me ask you, what if you could share in the revenue generated by the next hot game that's already going viral even before it hits the app stores? Now, I'm going to show you what it is and how big it will be and how you can get in it. Have you noticed the absolute craze over fantasy sports? Millions of Americans play fantasy, and it's growing. People spend over 8 hours a week playing, and the fantasy companies like FanDuel and DraftKings are making a killing. These two companies each bring in over $1 billion a year. But what's interesting is that those numbers are ridiculously small when compared to the world of sports fans. More than 290 million people watch sports, but only 20% play or even know about fantasy. Research shows the majority of sports fans don't play fantasy for a few different reasons. The most common being how fantasy is changing the game, making it too much about the stats and drafting and less about the fun, loyalty, and social aspect. But what if there was a better way to play? What if a new game came to the scene? One that embraced these fans, one that allowed them to play the game along with their favorite team, cheer for their favorite player, and have a fun, competitive, personal experience. One that allows you to play by yourself, with your closest buddies, or with a giant group of fans while meeting people from all over the world who like the same sports and teams that you like. Well, we have that game, and it's coming soon. And people are gonna love it because it's a better way to play, and it's done right. Brought to you by some of the best game makers in America, this new game is being built by the same people that design some of the leading sports games on the market today. A former senior creative director for EA Sports, responsible for Madden football, NCAA football, and NASCAR, leads the charge making this new app a real-time experience that is fun, social, and adaptable for age and experience. Young to old, beginner to expert. Players will accumulate lifetime achievement points. When players hit different benchmarks correlated to lifetime points, they will get to choose an award. Awards will vary depending on achievement points, but will include things in the early stages like shirts, hats, gift cards, and electronics. But as you continue with the game, you will be rewarded for loyalty and personal achievements with real-world rewards like travel, tickets to the big game, and even a new car. If you've ever wanted to be a part of something explosive, where you can say, I knew about that before you could even download it, or I saw that thing and knew how big it was going to be, then join us. We are giving an exclusive group of people the opportunity to become affiliates of United Games, helping us share this app with the world, and we are going to give these people a piece of the revenue it generates. This app will be free, driving revenue through in-app purchases, benefit-loaded subscriptions, freemium play, and advertising. Affiliates that share the app can get a piece of all types of the revenue. So, what's your job if you decide to become an affiliate? Share a free app and play. Just play. Here's the plan. For the next few months, we're going to be announcing the coming of the app. This early exposure will create two types of people: affiliates who share the app and those who just want to play it when it comes out. Every single person that downloads this app will be attached to one of our affiliates in perpetuity. Over the next several months, hundreds of thousands of people will hear about this app before it's released in the fall of 2016. When it hits the app stores, imagine the excitement this is going to create. Be a part of the next emerging giant and join with us today.